What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where each week I, Treavor Bettis, get to talk to awesome people about D&D and Idle Champions. I don't know why my brain just went blank there for a moment, but anywho, I am here with the amazing Emme Montgomery.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Hello, thank you for joining us. If people out there somehow don't know who are you for those fine folks?
Yes, just in case I am a new face to you, my name is Emme Montgomery. I am obviously a TTRPG player. You can catch me playing Gale on season 2 of the Familiar Quest currently here on CNE Games' channel on Twitch, and obviously everywhere. Everywhere. It's all over the
All the
place.
places.
And I'm also a voice actor, full-time streamer, and freelance host.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us today and talk about Gale and Familiar Quest and all that fun stuff. But before we get to that, I'd like to do my little icebreaker question, which is, how'd you get into D&D?
So I had a stepdad who, growing up, I looked up to so much, and he was really instrumental in getting me into gaming in general.
Mm-hmm.
He passed down like one of his first consoles to me. My first handheld console came from him, and my interest in D&D came from him telling me stories of being in high school and getting together and his friends bringing snacks over and being nerds rolling dice and telling stories. And
Heck yeah.
I just was, I mean, like, my eyes were this wide, and it was like, when I grow up, I'm gonna play Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I was just so excited. And as I got older, I lucked out. I had a coworker who was GMing his very first ever campaign, and we would do every Sunday for like 6 to 8 hours
Oh,
once a
wow.
week, which is astounding to me. We did this for like a year and a half, and when you think about the amount of coordination it takes to get
Yeah.
6 adults together for like 6 to 8 hours a week every week, I still don't know how we did it to this
Like
day.
now I'm the one sitting there just like, oh wow, maybe one
Yeah.
day I
It's
can.
so wild because I think that was like the best coordination I've ever had. And that was when it was just a home game before I ever started doing this, like, as part of my job. And
Mhm.
it is so funny to me that it can be harder to coordinate like actual work D&D sessions than it was to do that campaign. But it was a pre-written one, and every single person at the table was brand new. And
That's
we were using
awesome.
pre-made characters. And that,
What
I
were you
think of that,
playing?
I was a human fighter,
Hey.
just as like vanilla white bread as you could get. And it just completely captured my imagination, and I have not stopped playing since. So
That's fantastic. I love that. I always get giddy when I hear about groups that like everyone is new and they're all figuring this out together, because like that's like sort of how I got into it too. Like I still so fondly remember those times of just like, okay, but how does this work? It's okay. No, we'll just play it like this. It'll be fine. We're just gonna we'll do it. We don't want to worry about the rules right now. And it was such a fun time of like discovery. It's a
yeah.
blast.
Also, there's a level of trust at the table, I think, when you all have the same level of information.
Hmm.
When everyone's stumbling through the dark together, just grasping for the wall, there's a sense of camaraderie of like, none of us know how to do this right. That's comforting. I'm not the only one messing up.
I was the DM for that first group, and it was always great because someone would be like, "So wait, what does this mean?" I would go, "I don't know."
Yeah, our DM would always say, "I'm gonna find out for you. Let me look that up for you. Let's," and it was just constantly like, "Let's get out the book. Let's look it up.
Oh
Let's
yeah,
learn together."
I always ended up doing the Mike Myers SNL talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, ours were a potluck brunch style thing every week. So it was like
Oh,
nobody was ever mad if it was like, let's take 5 while the GM figures this out. Cause it was like, yeah,
food
I'm gonna
time.
sit, I'm gonna eat my food, I'm gonna snack, we're gonna catch up with each other. It was great.
That's fantastic. That sounds like
Yeah,
such a blast.
it was a lot of
Um,
fun.
but yeah, so now you've got lots of games under your belt just from that campaign alone, but not to mention all the streams, and now you're doing Familiar Quest. Which before we get to, I do want to say hi everyone. We are live. I do like to say that towards the beginning of the show once I think enough people have got in here. We are live this week, so if you'd like to put in questions for M, you can put in question : and then your question, and our awesome mods will grab them and put into a text doc that we will get to later. But before that, tell me about Familiar Quest.
Yeah, so we are just about 4 episodes into season 2 of A Familiar Quest, and it is essentially a group of familiars who, in season 1, we started in Barovia, and we had all been mysteriously severed from our summoners, from our companions, with no idea why and no memory of how we got where we were.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been part kind of mystery as we're unraveling what's going on. How is it possible that these familiars are out on their own? And season 2 had the shakeup of new cast members joining us. We have a new GM and new forms. So
Yeah.
first episode, we had a little bit of a hiccup where our characters kind of traveled unbeknownst to them to Waterdeep. And when we got there, suddenly some of us had changed forms. So season 1, Gale was a rat barbarian, which is still one of my favorite combinations I've ever done.
Oh yeah, I didn't know any. I was one of the mods for the first episode, and I didn't hear about any of y'all's characters beforehand. So like when you started doing the voice and then described your character, I'm like, well, I love this character. And then Michelle described Mugen and did the voice. I'm like, this is the best thing ever.
I just love them so much.
They're so good.
They're all so sweet, and they all have such big hearts, and it's so fun. And when I was brainstorming, okay, I have to do a new form, and I felt so attached to Gale being a rat, I came up with the idea to do a miniature giant seahorse, which just makes me laugh because you think it would be just called Seahorse.
Yeah,
but
yeah, miniature giant seahorse.
He's a miniature giant seahorse, which I love. I don't know why, that just tickles me.
Oh no, I ever since I found out about Boo the miniature giant space hamster, I'm just like, that is the greatest string of words I've ever heard. And
It's fantastic.
any mix up of those, I'm on board for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you talked a little bit there about like when you were coming up with Gale. How did you come up with Gale and everything for them?
Well, I had really wanted to, since the concept was so unique, this idea of we're going to play as the familiars, but they're going to have their own abilities and pick a class, and there were lots of discussions around what kind of familiar we could be in size and how it would impact our abilities. And I felt like it was a really fun opportunity. I like to play with like as exaggerated options as possible. So it's like, I want the tiniest form with the loudest, most aggressive, like I'm a barbarian kind of vibe. And I just thought it would be so sweet to have this teeny, tiny little rat. Like I can't think of anything less effective than a rat with its paw trying to. It's
oh god,
hilarious.
I used to have a pet rat, and I'm done.
Exactly. Like the thought of them just trying. The number of times I had to ask our GM for what I should roll to see if Gale would pee his pants in terror. I think Gale peed himself like 5 times in the first season because I was just trying to be honest and not make him seem cooler than he was. And I was like, he's this big. And there was like a barber that was doing some things with people's heads instead of their hair. And Gale took one look at him and I was like, roll for pants peeing? Gale just relieves himself. He's just terrified.
That's definitely a free action roll.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like the idea of playing, combining opposites,
Yeah.
So doing this character with such a big heart and someone who wants to be brave and wants to be strong and be the protector of the party and can't see what's going on half the time because he's so tiny that he doesn't know what they're looking at or what's happening is just gives me a lot of room comedically to play around as well, which I love.
I definitely think Luke McKay captured that in the Gale comic earlier this year. It was just the I would like to rage. It's so
I would like
good.
to rage, please. Could I please go into a rage?
Like he's just so precious. He's such a baby. I love him.
I gotta ask because I've asked this question with people when they got a character voice and stuff like that, and I ask it at the table too. Did you practice it beforehand, or did it just kind of flow when you started doing the character?
I had thought about it for a while. I kind of wanted to make him like a little like English knight of the round table kind of vibe. But for the most part, I knew that I wanted to do something that would be kind of like I wanted it to be the equivalent of like giant big-eyed Puss in Boots cute, kind of
Hmm.
like
He's a little rat and he is baby and we have to protect him. And I just love that he's trying his best and he's so strong even though he's so little.
and it was pretty much like I didn't know if I was going to do an accent until the first episode, but I knew he was going to sound like that. I knew he was going to be a little
Because he's just a little guy. You know, he's just a little guy being a pal.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I with just Gale and Mugen talking back and forth to each other, it like legitimately. Not I'm not just saying this because you're on the show or even that the show's on the same channels. It's some of my favorite RP interactions just because they are
you.
so dang adorable.
I love them. For anyone who hasn't seen the show, in season 1 Mugen is a giant two-headed death dog who is the epitome of like no thoughts, head empty, just like goldfish eyes, like so sweet. Bless
Head
her little
empty,
heart.
only strawed leg.
Exactly. The first episode, you know, she's a dog, she's looking for a bone, and she chews on the femur of Strahd. Like she eats part of Strahd in the first episode on accident.
I
And
was going through the first episode earlier today, and I just happened to end up at the end of it when I clicked onto it, where it was like your turn to do your outro. You're like, hey, remember that time Mugen ate Strahd's leg in the first episode?
it just completely it was like nobody had planned for that for this show. We're gonna have to rethink some things. All
Yeah.
right, good to know. And the two of them together, like, you know, Gale would ride on Mugen's back, and now for this season, Mugen is two quippers and Gale is a miniature giant seahorse. So they have been carried around in a bucket of water together, because they need to be in water. And the three of them, the two of them in the bucket is just it just it's tickling my funny bone all the time, constantly. I
So
love working with Michelle so much.
where did Gale and Mugen's like friendship start?
Ooh, like in terms of
Like
in
story?
game or
Yeah.
story wise, yeah. Well, that's kind of part of the fun of it is Michelle and I had decided we talked a little bit about like we knew each other, like our characters would have known each other ahead of time. They're from the same place, you know, they met. Mugen was digging for bones, and Gale kind of used his nose to be like, "You were digging in the wrong spot. Let me help you out here." And that's how they kind of initially bonded. But with the mechanic and with the storyline of us having no memory of how we got to Barovia
Hmm.
or what happened before, we both kind of liked that idea of those memories are slipping away. And like we remember meeting, but we don't know how long we've known each other and we don't quite exactly remember everything that we did or and I think that's really fun because it allows
Hmm.
Michelle and I to kind of be open to discovery as we go through the show, where we can fill that out as the
Yeah.
characters have interactions that bring back memories for them.
Yeah. No, that's like I don't mean this word in a bad way, but like that is a fun like story cheat code for like these two are friends, but they're also going to be discovering their friendship in front of all of you, so you
Yeah.
get to see it as well. But they are already friends. Like
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's such a great idea.
It's been a really fun thing to play around with, and she and I will sometimes, you know, private
Hmm.
message each other during it and be like, "This is what I'm thinking. Are you cool if we run with that?" And that's nice too. That immediacy of having that rapport with each other to, you know, build out our characters' relationship. And I'm excited to see how it contributes to where the show goes.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The messaging behind the scenes, I will say that's one of my favorite things of playing online instead of at the table, is because you can silently just be like, hey,
Hey, I have this
what if we
idea.
did this? That has led to some really fun stuff at my tables when they're online.
Yeah.
Because when you see two people like leaning over and like doing those three, like, I see you. I see
Yeah.
you.
Easier online.
Yeah. So you know, besides like the form changing, which we will get to, how has Gale's like arc been from the start of the series to now?
I think the thing that's been the biggest change for him is kind of coming into his own. The first season was very Gale with that memory loss, especially, knowing he wants to prove himself and knowing that he wants to be a protector for his group of friends. And he does that in season one.
Hmm.
He ends up kind of in a position where he's becoming a leader to other rats that are in Barovia as well, which I think is really sweet. And I think he, by the end of season one, really finds his place and gets into a groove with things. And so what's fun about season two is that gets upended a little bit with this sudden, like the rug's been pulled out under them and they're somewhere else
Hmm.
and things are happening. We're not in Barovia anymore. And so I really like that it's kind of allowed me to have that arc of growth for Gale and then put him to the test of like, all right, you're not in your comfort zone anymore.
Hmm.
You're in a new place. There's new people here. We have, new cast member Gabe, who's amazing, playing Marvel, who is just a chaotic delight. And a
That is the
very,
perfect description.
oh my gosh, such a good like foil for Gale in a lot of ways too,
Hmm.
because I think Gale is very transparent and pure at heart and just openly says everything. And Marvel is very chaotic energy, keeping things to themselves. And I love this almost like temptation of Gale's kind of like, well, that looks fun to be a little chaotic. Like let Marvel do what he wants to do. Let's see how
It's like
that
Gale
goes.
sees the troubled like cool kid in the class is like, can I be like them?
Yeah, he's like, oh wait, you can cheat on tests? I've been
What?
studying this whole time. That kid seems kind of cool. You could just not show up to class? That's an option? I didn't know we could do that. Like
Oh man,
it's
this is going way too in line with my actual history.
so that's been a lot of fun. That addition of Gabe to our dynamic, I think, is giving so much like entertainment value to the show because Gabe is just
Hmm.
phenomenal and Marvel's such a fun character, but it's also giving the rest of us a lot to play off of
Yeah.
and to see how that affects our characters, which I love.
One thing that I have absolutely loved because I got to talk to Eugenio recently about pests and everything, and I I absolutely love that the two of you have both been like, oh, we're not in Barovia anymore, as if like Barovia was a good place to
I
be. Like
know.
that, I really think that speaks to kind of the magic of the show that like Barovia ends up becoming this place that's like, oh no, we left Barovia.
I know.
With like that's most of the goal for every other player.
It's so odd. It's so odd because we made it such a home in the first
Hmm.
season, and that's not a thing that I expected to happen. So, just another little unique thing about our show, I guess, is that we're secretly pining for the comforts of Barovia, as
the
one
com-
does.
the comforts of Barovia. Oh, I
Mm,
would love to write that like resort pamphlet for that somewhere
yeah.
in Barovia and trying to make it sound like a nice place.
Trust me, we had our work cut out for us, but we made some improvements. We did
Y-
some housekeeping.
From what I heard, yeah, no, y'all knocked it out of the park with like reshaping Barovia and whatnot. And who knew? A couple familiars is all it took. Had all whole adventuring parties out there. Pff, we
Yep.
don't need those.
Mm-mm.
We don't need those.
Leave it to the familiars.
So yeah, the new form, the miniature giant seahorse. What how has that been? You talked about like wanting like kind of the opposite things where it's like miniature giant then seahorse and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So how has that been?
It's been really fun. I initially, talked to the team behind a familiar quest because I was thinking about that was my first thought was miniature giant seahorse. Oh my gosh, that's Gale. That's so Gale. And immediately had that crashing realization of like, unless season 2 is suddenly aquatic and we're all underwater creatures, how on earth is that going to work? They're definitely going to say, no, we can't do that. So I'll run it by them. And then when they tell me no, I'll think of something else. And they went, yep, we can make that work. We'll figure it out. Let's run with it. And it's been fun because a running joke on the show is, we do get stuff done. A lot of the times, though, it's in ways where we're doing creative workarounds because we are not necessarily the strongest or the largest or, your typical adventuring party. And we joke a lot about being useless. I have never felt more useless in any game that I've ever played in than being a miniature giant seahorse in a bucket of water where all of the enemies are on dry land. And I'm like, I can do my ram attack if I have 20 feet in front of me to clear. The bucket has about 6 inches, so Gale hits the bucket on accident and falls out and starts gasping for breath. That's my turn. Thank you. It's been so much fun because I'm not the kind of player who needs to be at like the front of the pack, getting the most damage and getting the most done. I like telling the best story and having the most fun at the table. And getting to role play as an aquatic creature, bless his little heart, he's trying so hard to be helpful on dry land. And it just opens it up for so many fun moments, so many moments of creative thinking as well, of like, okay, well, how can I do things from inside the bucket? How can I be helpful? And that's just been the kind of challenge that I wouldn't have encountered in any other campaign.
It makes me think of the that meme that was going around for a while from the scene with from Black Panther, where one of the characters is like, you would make a suboptimal choice in combat on purpose, like for the purpose of roleplay every time. I'm like, yeah, I love that stuff.
I built a suboptimal character on purpose, so yes, he's pretty useless.
Well, that was the funny thing, because I this season I actually did see y'all's characters ahead of time, and I saw the seahorse and I saw the fish, and I was like, are we doing like Avatar 2? Like it's all the underwater parts of Barovia now? And so then when the first episode, y'all were in Waterdeep, I'm like, so are you going to be in like the water part of Waterdeep?
I'm not advocating for splitting the party, but like, at a certain point, maybe Michelle and I should do an underwater exploration.
Oh my god, that would be the best.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love to actually get to see what they can do when they're in the water, because so far it's been a lot of falling out of the bucket. So
there is a broom carrying the bucket, if I remember right. Yeah.
Yes, Michelle does have a flying broom that we got in season 1. And we kind of just put the bucket on it, and it
makes sense.
That's how we move. Yeah.
Yeah.
It works pretty well. It's a surprising workaround.
The broom of flying is like one of my top 5 favorite items to give players, because I'm just like, I cannot wait to see how you break this. Let's go.
We have done so many broken things with it. It's been great.
There was one session I had with players that had that. My wife was the one with the flying broom, and I had this entire thing planned out of like, okay, they're gonna go through this and they're gonna get ambushed by these things, and my wife goes, I'm just gonna fly everybody to the top, and I was like, fantastic, I love it.
Love it.
And I'm like, I laughed for probably 2 minutes, where I'm just like, I'm laughing at myself for not remembering I gave you that you could absolutely do it. So you're good.
That's like Frodo being like, hey Gandalf, just call the eagles.
Yeah.
Just like call the eagles at the start. Let's just take them straight there.
This one was just like, oh yeah, I forgot, I got some eagles in my back pocket.
Yeah, let's just take the eagles.
Yeah.
Let's skip the whole 3 movies where we walk thing.
The thing is, though, I love that they did that, because I'm like, I didn't give any hints at what you were going to find, so I get to use that later.
That's nice. That's a gift.
Okay, so you got the new form, you got the seahorse, and everything like that. But how has season 2 been so far? Like, you all are 3 or 4 episodes in, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, you were saying you got this new friend Marvel, but you also have a new DM. So how has season 2 been treating you?
It's been really incredible. It's such a testament to the incredible nature of both of our new additions to the cast, our new GM and our new player, that the chemistry is still there and that
Hmm.
everyone works so well together, and that it feels like such a seamless transition of just bringing these characters into a different story and a different location. And it's been so much fun to get to have things shaken up
Hmm.
with a character, Marvel, as we talked about, that is drastically different
Hmm.
from the kind of alignment and style of decision making that our familiars normally stick to. Marvel makes some chaotic choices, and I am so here for it all the time, constantly. I'm just so excited to see whatever it is that Gabe is going to come up with
Hmm.
from what we're presented with, which is just such a joy to be a part of and to
Hmm.
play off of.
Yeah,
Um,
I was wondering how the transition was going to go with the chain zippers and everything, but like the first episode, I mean, it's not even that far, and it's probably like 15 to 20 minutes in, and Latia has set the scene and everything, and she's essentially just, I even told her this in her episode, she just kind of sits back as all of you are just role playing your characters and filling the scene, and it flowed so well. Like that
yeah.
was absolutely incredible to watch.
It's so amazing to see that happen in real time, because
Hmm.
you just don't know when
Yeah.
you're going to be making shakeups and changes like that. And it's been so much fun. And it's been so much fun to combine that with us having new forms as
Hmm.
well. Because then for those of us who are returning, there's still new elements that we're
Hmm.
working with. And it's it's made me so excited to see where the rest of the season goes,
Hmm.
and not at all nervous to see what Marvel's going to blow up next.
Not at all.
Not
No,
in the
no
slightest.
concerns at all.
No.
Easy going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, changing gears a little bit. At the beginning of the show, you talked about being a voice actor.
Yeah.
How has that journey been?
It has genuinely been the most fulfilling and like joyful thing that I have ever set out upon in
That's
my
so
career.
awesome.
I've been a full-time streamer for about 6 years now, and I got into voice acting probably 2 or 3 years ago. Um, and the really great thing has been every single project I've booked has been for a video game,
Nice.
which, as somebody who's a full-time streamer, aside from the fact that I then get to bring that knowledge into the booth when I do sessions,
Hmm.
it's so helpful to have a background in gaming. But it also means that when the games that I'm in finally do come out, because game dev is a very long process, when they
Yes.
do finally come out, I get to stream them and share that with my community. And it's such a unique
Hmm.
experience to share the joy of, oh my god, I'm in this thing, like I
Yeah.
brought this character to life, and you can pick up the game and play it today. But to have that moment captured forever on
Hmm.
stream with your community is just one of the most heartwarming things I've ever experienced.
How,
And
how how wild was it the first time your voice came out of a video game?
it definitely made me cry.
Oh,
I,
that's
I I absolutely cried. It it was incredibly surreal. And it's one of those things where the more I do it, the less weird it is. It's
Mhm.
it's always exciting. It just becomes less strange. But it was genuinely one of the happiest moments of my life, was booting up a game on stream with my community there to cheer me on, and hearing my voice come out of a character in a game and seeing my name in the credits was just mind blowing. So,
What
uh,
was the first game?
the first game that I was in is called Cook Serve Delicious 3. It
Okay.
is obviously the third in a franchise of cooking simulator games, where the player is a food truck
Oh, very cool.
culinary artist,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
And it's set very hilariously in a like post-apocalyptic America in which you're going on a road trip and you'll like casually drive through states and they'll be like, remember that one time when Texas was submerged underwater after the Blue War? Like they'll just drop these little bits of lore randomly the longer you play. And there are two robots that are your robot companions as you drive your food truck across the states. And I played the robot food truck driver named Whisk.
Oh my god. I need to find this game because that was one of the most wild descriptions of a
Yeah.
game I've ever heard. It's like, what
Yeah.
if we took the postman and did it with a food truck?
It's one of those things where you can always see the moment where you're like, it's a cooking simulator game. You're in a food truck in post-apocalyptic America, and there's two robot companions, and one of them handles the artillery while you're driving because there's combat while you're trying to serve food truck. Yes, like
That's incredible.
it's so funny. The humor is so strong in it, and I feel very fortunate they are doing the creators of that game are doing an entirely new IP. So it's not a continuation of Cook Serve Delicious, but it's tangentially related. It's called Cook Serve Forever, and it is their first like fully voice acted, fully narrative driven, like epic scale game. And I am one of the leads in that, which is very
Hey,
exciting.
that's so awesome.
So they brought me back. I'm
Congrats.
playing someone different this time. So
Okay.
not the same character, but very excited about that as well.
That's so I'm genuinely going to look up this game after we're done with this show because that
Yeah.
sounds so freaking cool.
It's honestly, it's a lot of fun.
Especially if it's a cooking game that I don't have to worry about getting lettuce that's on another truck across the freeway and I got to jump across and back and forth. I can't do that one.
None of that. No, my anxiety levels go through the roof.
Well,
with that
I also
one.
used to work in a restaurant, and I'm just like, this is literally my nightmare. This
Mm-hmm.
is straight up my nightmare.
Yep. I used to work in quick service food at a theme park,
Mm-hmm.
and it was during the summer. And those three things, quick service food at a theme park during the summer in Southern
Ooh.
California.
Oh, I know that one. Yep, no.
Yep.
Mm-mm,
Uh-huh.
mm-mm.
Yeah. That was
Like
fun.
I can smell and feel the dust in my nose.
Oh yeah. Mhm. It was a blast. And people are really patient when they've
Oh
spent
yeah, absolutely. No, they're the-
$150 per person to come to a theme park, and that's the only meal they're gonna eat that day. They're really patient
Yeah,
with you.
so happy.
Yeah, so happy to see you.
overjoyed. Real quick, it does look like we're going to be doing a giveaway in chat here in a moment. The keyword is going to be all lowercase Gale! Exclamation point. Oh, sorry. No, note. Oh yeah, no, there is an exclamation point. Okay, so all lowercase Gale! Exclamation point. When you see that pop up in the chat, you can enter it, and then 2 minutes later, we're gonna choose someone to give 42 chests of their choice, except for Bahamut chests too. So be sure to keep it up. There it is. Now, well, it was there before I said that, but go do it. Go back to voice acting though, real quick. I want to ask, like, how did you? Do you, well, better yet, do you have any tips for people who might be like, I've considered this sort of thing, it's always been kind of the back of my head. How do they start that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing to remember that a lot of people forget, a lot of people approach it as like, I've been told all my life I have a really good voice, or like,
Yeah.
I love doing impressions. I can do cartoon character impressions. My friends say I should be a voice actor. The most important piece of advice that I think you can always receive is voice acting is acting first and the voice is secondary. So the reverse is also true. If you're someone who thinks, oh, I've always wanted to be a voice actor because I love acting, but I don't like my voice. I don't have a good voice. I can't do impressions.
Mm-hmm.
The acting is the most important part. So if you're someone who's interested in getting into it, having a baseline foundation of just general acting skills is incredibly important,
Mm-hmm.
more so than like being able to do different voices. So I always recommend to people, there's phenomenal classes online, especially since the pandemic. Things that you used to have to live in LA to go to in
Mhm.
person are now being done over Zoom. So take advantage of resources from studios that offer beginner classes. There's a lot of really good ones out there. And there's more to voiceover than just anime and video games and animation as well. A lot of people get into it thinking like, I want to do anime dubbing. And there's so much more to
Yeah.
that world than just
Oh,
those
yeah.
3 narrow little pieces. So I highly recommend doing a little bit of research and learning, taking some classes, and seeing how you like it once you've done, you know,
Mhm.
dip your toes in the water and see if you still enjoy it, you know?
I love that. Yeah, no. The thing you were saying there though about people have always said like I've got a good voice for this. I had that, but I had people telling me like, "Oh, you've got a great voice for radio. You should get it on the radio." And I'm just like, "Okay, I don't walk into a radio station, kick down the door and go, "Listen to my voice.
Yeah.
Give me a show." So I just
Yeah.
started my own with podcasts.
And I'm sure you know from doing, you know, your own podcast also, there's so much more that goes like
Oh,
having a
yeah.
good voice is probably the smallest component of that.
Mhm.
It's about being able to put on a good show and improvising and creating the content itself,
Yeah.
and your voice is just one tiny little piece of that puzzle.
Yeah, no, it's like you can have a great voice, but if you like one of the challenges I give people is I'm like, record yourself talking about something for 30 minutes and don't have any silences
Yeah.
unless they're there on purpose.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So what are the other things that you talked about those and you said just a little bit ago is that you're a full-time streamer.
Yes.
How did you get into that? Or actually, you know what, this is my other favorite way to say that. Why do you love streaming?
Ooh, why do I love streaming? That's a great question. People never ask that. I love streaming because I find that the community that is developed and curated by the streamer, if you're someone who has a commitment to, you know, morals and values and has some semblance of moderation in your channel at the very least, usually what you're cultivating is something really special.
Mhm.
For me, it's there's a huge emphasis on having an LGBTQIA2 plus friendly community, and trying our best to make it an inclusive and welcoming space for people who are new to Twitch, who are
Mhm.
new to whatever game I'm streaming, who are um, at any point in their lives in which they are discovering things about themselves. Especially, that's such a joy for me, is
Mhm.
having conversations about LGBTQIA2 plus issues and having people, you know, hear something that sparks a better understanding of themselves as a result. Being able to connect people with one another and be a part, even in a small way, of curating a space that, for instance, has helped people get through events like the pandemic. You know,
Mhm.
hearing from people saying that having that community has been beneficial or positive or meaningful to them in any way is what makes me love every single day that I show up. Doing it for 6+ years, it all comes down to the people. And the kind of motto on my channel is leave the internet better than we found it.
Oh, I love that.
And that's kind of like my guiding ethos for everything that I do. So whether that's the way we're interacting with each other or doing charity streams, fundraisers, the way we engage on social media, whatever it might be, just always trying to have that as a guiding light of making sure we're always leaving our online spaces better than we found them.
I think that is honestly one of the best like internet mottos I've ever heard. Like that's so
Thank
good.
you.
Well, yeah, because I mean that's definitely not something that a lot of people think about. It's just like I'm just gonna go on here and get all my frustration out, and then I'm just gonna leave. Like it's not my problem anymore. And
Yeah.
so to encourage that, just like, hey, do something nice before you go, sort of thing. It's like, you know, I was in Boy Scouts as a kid. And I heard the version that's like leave nature cleaner than the way that you found it,
Yeah.
and so you know that set in for me of just like grabbing some trash and stuff like that while we're on the trail. If people for some reason are just eating their protein bar while you're walking and you're just like, I'm just gonna drop down there. Why are you out walking? Sorry, that's a whole other rant.
I'm right there with you though. Yeah, that's where that inspiration came from. And that's actually one of my favorite pieces of merch I have. Is it looks like a scouting badge, and it's designed to look like a scouting badge, and it says "Leave the internet better than we found it," which I love.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah, because that I mean that's where that was inspired by, was that idea of I think you should carry that with you in all the spaces you inhabit, you know?
Heck yeah. No, yeah, that is a good part. So somebody put in there, said, what was it? Leave the world better than how you found it. From Boy Scouts. Yeah, that is, and yeah, doing that in more spaces than just on a hike, I think is a great mentality to have. That's so
Yeah.
good.
Thank
Um,
you.
but before we get to some viewer questions, there's one other streamer question that I gotta ask. What is your favorite game that you've streamed?
My favorite game that I've ever streamed?
Mm-hmm.
Oh
I know that's
gosh.
probably a big list. You got 6 years of it there.
It is a very big list. Probably it feels like a cop-out answer, but it's true. The Last of Us, which eh, I know it sounds like an obvious one, but it was so meaningful to me in terms of, obviously there were so many things that changed for my
Hmm.
channel after I did that playthrough and had a viral moment come out of
Yep.
it. But
Well, that was why I laughed, was
yeah,
because
yeah.
I literally before we got in here, I was telling my wife, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing IL Insights with Emme Montgomery. You know who that is, by the way. And I described it, and she went, oh my god.
A lot of people don't realize, because I look so different now, because my hair's so different, but I have I don't know if you'll be able to see. I have
Oh
so I
my
have the
god,
rabbit,
that's so good.
and then on this arm I have an arrow that faces it.
That's
So
so good.
thank you. That was we were fundraising for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and we only did a couple days of fundraising, and I was like, I know it's a wild stretch goal, but if we hit $100,000 on this last day, I would get a tattoo to commemorate that meme.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I did not think within 24 hours we went from 17,000 raised to 101,000.
Wow.
And so now
Wow.
I have my meme immortalized in tattoo form
I
forever.
think that's fantastic. I really do. That's so
Thank you.
good. And,
Uh,
and like, it's not only like on its own, I would have been like, that's fantastic. But there's a charity moment behind it and everything. That's heartwarming as hell. I love it.
it makes it even more meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, obviously, when I say that that would be my favorite game that I've streamed, that's the immediate connotation and the connection that people make.
Mm-hmm.
But it also is just such a profoundly, like, emotionally personal playthrough for me. Um, Unfortunately, my stepdad, who was very instrumental in terms of my development and my love of gaming, he was the whole reason I started streaming. He passed away right right around when that clip went
Oh.
viral, actually. And so I was doing this Last of Us playthrough, and then, later playing The Last of Us Part 2. And in the back of my mind, very much, I was having this very emotional
Mm-hmm.
response and connection to the father figure daughter dynamic between Ellie and Joel. And that was something that was just like hit me at that point in time in my life, where I was having a lot of feelings about
Yeah.
a father figure that I wasn't related to. Um, and so it just has such a special place in my heart for so many reasons, you know?
That's fantastic. No, yeah, yeah, that's I get why, like, there's that general reaction that people have, because they're like, oh yeah, because of the meme. It's like, no, this was honestly a big emotional thing for me, and
Yeah.
I think that's really great though, that it's got that game had so many facets of a moment for you.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
Yeah. It's really holds a special place in my heart always.
Heck yeah. Well, let's check in with chat real quick and see what questions they had while we were talking. Let's see. This is from oh, Nolosaurus? I'm gonna go with that. Question: what's the biggest difference you find between doing TTRPG on a stream versus offline? For stream, do you prefer to play live or pre-recorded format?
That's a really good
That
question.
is that is that was a good two-parter.
I think the biggest difference, which, I'll be curious to hear from you and from anyone else who has done both. The biggest difference for me is being aware that what you're creating is entertainment first and foremost. So even though you might want to take 10 minutes to be really crunchy and look through a rule book and double check something and look up every single ability and min max things, and what might be your instinct as a player that might work at a table when you can say, hey, everyone, take 5 to, bathroom, get snacks, get drinks, whatever, doesn't always make for entertaining and engaging content online. So one of the biggest differences for me, and one of the biggest learning curve aspects of it, was learning to be okay with, you're going to miss things. You are absolutely going to forget abilities that you normally, if you didn't have a camera pointed at you and you were taking your time a little more, you would be playing a little more proficiently, and kind of being okay with that, being okay with not, being a perfectionist, I guess, is how I would describe that. And in terms of live versus pre-recorded, I find that I think the only real difference for me is I like doing live content because then I don't have to worry what I can or can't talk about online. I don't have to worry about slipping up and accidentally, because I am a full-time streamer. You stream for hours at a time, you get to talking, you chit chat, you run your mouth, and I get so nervous about saying things that I'm not supposed to say that I'm like, I'm just not going to talk about it because I don't remember which episode of the show has aired, and I'll just never mention it. Whereas if something's live, you're like, can you believe what happened last night? Which makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So.
No, I pretty much fully agree with that. Like, especially the part about the entertainment first sort of thing. And it has this kind of, it's a weird freeing thing because we're like, no, we're focused on the entertainment part of this, not the crunch part of it. Yeah. When it is that moment of like, hey, we don't remember how this works, we're just going to play it that way. It's literally immediate, just wave of relief off of me. I don't need to care about it anymore.
Yeah.
Instead of having that like 10 minutes of like, oh, is it this one? Is it that way? Maybe and so it lets the game happen, even though it's more of a focus on entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the pre-recorded versus live thing, because in my head I was just like, I feel like they're about the same, and I'm like, no, that's a really good point. And when it's pre-recorded, I'm like, I have no idea where you all are.
When it's pre-recorded all the time, when we do our outros, we're like, I don't know what to plug because I don't know what's going to be happening at that time. I think you'll have seen a certain show. Can I announce it? I don't know if I can say it. Whereas when it's live, that makes it easier. But
I do a pre-recorded show with B. Dave Walters, and that is his constant struggle. Is like, so wait, when does this come out?
What should I be promoting
by
the time that this is airing? Yeah.
Let's see. Let's go to Alaric_Frost question. I'm currently playing a barbarian, and I'm finding it difficult to choose my path. What playstyle have you found works with wild magic?
Ooh, that's a great question.
That's a really good one.
Even before I was doing shows on stream, I've always kind of leaned more heavily into the character development and like role-playing aspects personally. Like I love reading, I love creative writing, I love storytelling. And so for me, I always work from the perspective of looking at it from a storytelling aspect first, mechanics second.
Yep.
And I'll usually only kind of say, oh, I don't want to go that direction if the mechanics seem really like I'm not going to remember, or I'm not going to want to do that math, or whatever it might be. But I tend to go from the perspective of like, look at where your character's at right now, what kind of character they are, who they are, and what does it narratively make sense? Like if they were real, what direction do you think that their personality would kind of guide them to? What presents the most interesting challenge for them as a character, first and foremost? And I find that way, even if the mechanics are not exactly what you're in love with, you're still having fun at the table because you have material that's interesting to you.
The funny thing is that it's about time for us to start wrapping up because we got a show right after this. So I mean, Em, thank you so much for sitting down with me today, and apologies for the unscripted. Just I'm gonna head out real quick and take 5. If people wanted to find you and your work on the interwebs, where could they do so?
You can find me on all social platforms under the username NegaOryx, Negaoryx, and genuinely every single platform. I have like 3 different YouTube channels, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch. I'm everywhere. So
I love it. It's got
yeah,
the simplified branding. It's everywhere.
exactly. Because nobody else would make a silly made up name with so many difficult to pronounce syllables. So it was really easy to get on all platforms. But do let
There
me
you go.
know if you come through on any platform. Tell me that you found me from here so I can say hi.
Heck yeah. Yeah, so again, thank you so much for talking with me today. Be sure to watch A Familiar Quest Series 2 Mondays at 5 p.m. here on twitch.tv/CNEgames. But that is going to do it for this week's episode. So until next week, take care of yourself.